Welcome to First Parish in Needham, a Unitarian Universalist congregation of humanists, theists, atheists, agnostics, and interfaith families. We are a proud LGBTQ welcoming congregation, climate justice seeking green sanctuary, level 2 sanctuary supporting congregation for immigration justice, an 8th principle congregation striving to dismantle racism and other oppressions and build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community. Whoever you are, whatever your background, and wherever you're participating from, you are welcome here. I am Ginger Newcomb. I've been attending First Parish since moving to Needham in 2004. I've served on our membership committee, music committee, and I sing in our choir. I belong to several small groups, and I've also helped in our memorial garden, our church office, and the homegrown coffee house. Best of all, I sang with Jim and Beth Sargent and the First Parish Singers. This church community has given me a spiritual home, rewarding friendships, and many opportunities to feel useful. As a new member of the Reproductive Justice Task Force, I invite you to watch Call Jane, a film which describes an underground network of women who take risks to help pregnant women. It will be shown here on Sunday, February 26th at 4 p.m. A review and discussion of the film will be held at the Lane Lyceum via Zoom on Tuesday, February 28th at 7:30 p.m. And please look for these lovely Valentine's reminders at the coffee hour, at the social hour that our kids have made for you to post and remind you to watch. Our congregation is offering worship and programming with in-person, hybrid, and online gatherings. You can learn more about all that's happening at First Parish by going to our website, uuneedham.org, or by following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Our order of service is online too at the QR code in your pews and at the website UU Updates Church. For all Zoom links and the most up-to-date information, please sign up for our weekly email newsletter by going to our website and clicking getinvolved.newsletter, or sending your request to office@uuneedham.org. Welcome again to everyone here in the building and online, and good morning.
As we light our chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, we read words from multiracial UU minister and military chaplain, Reverend Dr. Rebecca Savage. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals. Our opening hymn, Guide My Feet, is an African-American spiritual included in the early 1900s folk song collections by Black musician and scholar Willis Lawrence James. The metaphor of running this race is inspired by language in the letters of the first century Christian evangelist Paul. Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing Guide My Feet. The lyrics are in your orders of service and at number 348 in your gray hymnals.
In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the covenant is a set of promises the membership of a congregation strives to honor with one another and out in the world. Whether we participate in our community online or in the building, we strive to live these promises every day. Please say along with me the words of our parish covenant as in your orders of service. We gather as a loving community to encourage and comfort one another. We gather as a diverse community to support each other in our search for spiritual truth. We gather as a service community to live our beliefs through action and care for our world.
Good morning. It is so wonderful to see you all in person, and imagine I am seeing you online. I am here today to tell you a story. Unsurprising. I do it just about every week. But I am here to tell you a bit of a love story, a bit of a triumph, a little bit of sadness as well, despair for a world we wanted to be better and are working to make better. We have talked a lot about marriage equality in our faith. We talk a lot about marriage equality in the context of same-sex marriage, of queer love. But we also know that marriage equality is not something new to be fighting for. Before it was queer people that we would not allow to be married, we would not allow interracial marriage in this country. There were strict laws in the Jim Crow South banning those who were white and those who were, quote, colored from marrying. The way they classified this was by a one-drop rule. If any bit of you was not white, according to some big system, some person behind a desk who decided you were not white, that decided the rest of your life. It decided who you could marry, where you could live. And that brings us to the story of Mildred Jeter and Richard Loving. You see, they lived in Virginia. They were family friends. Mildred Jeter was African American and Native American, though her Native American ancestry was not recognized by the government. Unsurprising when we get systems involved that don't just want to look at people, but want to look at numbers instead. Richard Loving was white. Though Virginia had very strict Jim Crow laws, and there was so much separation, they lived in a community that was very integrated. They were friends. Their families loved one another. And soon they fell in love, despite the laws banning it at the time. It seems so appropriate that Richard's last name was Loving. You see, they wanted to get married, but they couldn't in their home state of Virginia, so they went to DC, where it was legal. They got married there, and when they came back, they had to hide their marriage. Soon, police were knocking down their door, barging in, accusing them of interracial marriage, and banning them from the state under threat of prison time. And so they did. They left. They had 3 children. They lived in DC for a long time. But then their youngest child was hit by a car. It was terrible, and they needed support. They desperately wanted to be back with their family in Virginia. But they knew if they returned, they would be arrested. Who would care for their children? What kind of life was this to live? So they appealed to the government. They asked for help. Soon the ACLU was involved, and they took their case to court, all the way to the Supreme Court, which is where we get the court case Loving v. Virginia. Again, an appropriate last name. They fought for love in that courtroom, not only theirs, but the love of all those who wished to marry who they chose. Eventually, the court decided they were right. Interracial marriage should not be illegal. It was wrong. Unfortunately, it took us a lot longer to realize that about other marriage, and there's still work to do there. But the Lovings were able to live together as husband and wife in their home of Virginia, where they desperately wanted to be once more. Though to many of us, Loving Virginia, a big title, means a lot. We learn about it in history books. We talk about it here in our faith communities as examples of to fight for what is right. But we must also remember these were people. People who wanted to live their life. People who wanted to love one another. They got to live post the decision in Loving v. Virginia together for about another 8 years, before unfortunately Richard died in a car accident. Mildred was very private about their life, for just about the rest of hers. She didn't see a need to talk about the decision. All she wanted was to be married to her husband that she loved. There are a couple brief exceptions, one of which was a statement she made on the 40th anniversary of the decision. She said, "I am still not a political person, but I am proud that Richard's and my name is on a court case that can help reinforce the love, the commitment, the fairness, and the family that so many people, Black or white, young or old, gay or straight, seek in life. I support the freedom to marry for all. That's what loving and loving are all about." There is still work to be done in marriage equality. We know that when people become married, if they're on disability, they can lose those benefits. Until everyone can marry who they love and live in this world, there is still work to be done. But there are also celebrations to be made, and for us to remember that loving is always at the center. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Elizabeth. As our children follow Sarah Elizabeth to their religious exploration opportunities, please sing "Long Time Son" as printed in your orders of service.
And now we enter in the time where we share our joys and concerns and milestones with one another, that those concerns and joys that lie on our hearts. If you cannot be in the sanctuary, but you would like to have a joy or concern shared within the congregation, please email me at internminister@uuneedham.org by midnight on the Thursday before the service. We have one pre-submitted candle this morning, and it is from your staff. And we offer a candle of sorrow for the people of Syria and Turkey who experienced a massively destructive earthquake this week. We grieve for the loss of life, for families missing their loved ones, and communities digging out and rebuilding. We light a candle. And now if anyone in the sanctuary has a joy or sorrow to share, I invite you to please come forward.
Hi, my name is Andrea Grealish. I'm going to light a candle of concern and sadness for 2 more young people cancer deaths. My next door neighbor lost her college roommate from ocular melanoma, and one of my daughter's dance company dads died of melanoma 2 weeks ago, too. So I light a candle for them. Too many young people. Both are in their 50s.
For these and all other joys, sorrows, and concerns which lie silent on our hearts, we light a final candle. I invite you to join me in a time and spirit of prayer. Our prayer this morning is from a queer Black UU membership professional named Adrian L.H. Graham, and the words excerpted from his prayer written for the UUA's 30 Days of Love campaign, which wraps up this Tuesday on Valentine's Day. Please join me in prayer. Holy Spirit of life and love, wow. You are greater than anything that we have imagined thus far, yet you dwell within each of us, and we thank you for this precious day. We, your beloveds, come in so many shapes and sizes, able-bodied and disabled. And in all the many colors of the rainbow, we are cisgender, transgender, agender, non-binary, and more. We are homosexual, heterosexual, bisexual, asexual, pansexual, demisexual, and more. We are monogamous, polyamorous, single-partnered, married, and more. In a time when our differences are stereotyped and exaggerated to drive wedges between us, help us, O God, of infinite variety, to appreciate our likenesses and to view our differences in a pluralistic society as the strengths they are. Help us, O righteous God of the oppressed and marginalized, to side with love, to rise up and to resist, reclaiming our voices and our bodily autonomy as our birthright. Help us, O God, of healing and salvation, to center care for the whole, reminding us that only together can we realize a just, equitable, beloved community on this earth. You, Great One, who are present in every raindrop, in every breeze, with us in every sunset, in every sunrise, rejoicing from within every giggle and every smile. We know that what affects one affects all in this interdependent tapestry of life into which you have woven us. We know that you have the power to act because you reside in us. And we are you. We are your hands, we are your feet, your eyes, your ears, and each of us enfleshed, emissaries of the holy. Will be held in a few moments of silence. Amen. Please remain seated and join in singing our meditative response, Hine Ma Tov, once in Hebrew and once in English. The words are printed in your orders of service at number 3 and at number 392 in the gray hymnals.
Hine Ma Tov. That was beautiful, standing up here listening to that. Good morning. My name is Eric Bailey, and believe it or not, I'm not asking you for money this morning. No, I want to tell you a little bit about our story, how First Parish does indeed keep our family moving forward, which is the theme of our pledge drive this year. And if you felt so moved to pledge after hearing this, that would be just fine. Our family has been a part of this community for almost 20 years now. Many of you know that Cassie and Zoe basically grew up in this church. They are almost as comfortable in this building as in our own house. From RE in the downstairs classrooms, including the old Fuller Hall, for those that remember that, to hanging in Parish Hall for our monthly PYC gatherings, to the magic of the Christmas Eve service. This has been a special place for our family, and you, all of you, are special people. But life doesn't stand still. Cassie and Zoe aren't little kids anymore. Zoe is a second year at the University of Virginia. Maybe we should rename it University of Loving. And Cassie is teaching English at an elementary school in Thailand. And we, Liz and I, are empty nesters, which is awesome. Our life is moving forward. It isn't always easy. The roads we travel are rarely smooth. But if we hit a bump and feel the bruises it leaves, we know that all of you are here to help. We gather as a loving community to encourage and comfort one another. We have given a lot to First Parish over the years. Our time. Both of us have led our whole lives. I have helped with finances. Liz chaired the ministerial search committee that brought Reverend Katie to us. Our money. Our annual pledge is our single largest contribution to any organization. And our hearts. We are so at home here, right here, with all of you. And in return, First Parish has given so much to us. A place to love, laugh, listen, and sometimes lament. A source of friendships that have lasted not just for years, but approaching decades. A point of pride that we, as liberal as we are, can say with a straight face that we are regular churchgoers. And memories that will truly last a lifetime. Many of you remember our year in exile when we shared space at Temple Beth Shalom while this building was under renovation. We all grew during that time, coming to understand that as important as our building is, and I love our building, that First Parish is so much more. It moves forward with us, never standing still, but always here for us, even if we are far away. And so I say thank you to all of you who make up this community for welcoming us with open arms and allowing the four of us to move forward ourselves, collectively and individually. I hope we never stop.
Thank you, Eric. It wouldn't be a pledge drive unless you gave a beautiful pitch to the congregation. This congregation has been supported by the volunteered time and treasure of its members and friends since its founding in 1711. And this is the time in our service when we, the modern stewards of the church, offer what we can to build and sustain the congregation and the world we envision. In response to the horrific toll of Monday's magnitude 7.8 earthquake in southern Turkey and northern Syria, our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee has asked congregations and individuals to donate to the White Helmets, a nonpartisan Syrian organization of emergency volunteers, also known as the Syrian Civil Defense. Since the 2012 escalation of the Syrian civil war, White Helmet volunteers have provided fellow Syrians assistance with medical evacuation, search and rescue after bombings, evacuation from dangerous areas, repair work of damaged buildings and roads, and essential service delivery. Their mission is to save the greatest number of lives in the shortest possible time and to minimize further injury to people and damage to property. 3,000 White Helmet volunteers are already on the ground in the aftermath of the earthquake. To donate to today's offering, you can use one of 3 different methods as described in detail in your orders of service, using our Text to Give program, making a donation through our website, dropping a check or cash into the collection plate, or mailing it to First Parish. Whichever way you donate, remember to specify whether your donation is meant for the plate collection or for your annual pledge. And if this is one of your first visits to First Parish, we encourage you to fill out a yellow card in your pew back to drop into the collection plate, or fill out our online visitors form at uuneedham.updates.church. Thank you for everything you are able to give to help support and sustain this congregation and the vital work of our community partners. And many thanks to Liz Campbell for our beautiful flowers today, in loving memory of her brother, Michael Goodwill. May the ushers now please come forward.
Remember, darling.
Our reading this morning is excerpted from a magazine article written by Euro-American author and professor Dr. Robin DiAngelo, addressing her study of white identity and racism. She writes, "When you understand racism as a system of structured relations into which we are all socialized, you understand that individual intentions are irrelevant. And when you understand how socialization works, you understand that most of racial bias is unconscious. Negative messages about people of color circulate all around us. While having friends of color is better than not having them, it doesn't change the overall system or prevent racism from surfacing in our relationships. The societal default is white superiority, and we are fed a steady diet of it 24/7. To not actively seek to interrupt racism is to internalize and accept it. As part of my work, I teach, lead, and participate in affinity groups, facilitate workshops, and mentor other whites in recognizing and interrupting racism in our lives. As a facilitator, I am in a position to give white people feedback on how their unintentional racism is manifesting. This has allowed me to repeatedly observe several common patterns of response. The most common, by far, is outrage. How dare you suggest that I could have said or done something racist? Given the dominant conceptualization of racism as individual acts of cruelty, it follows that only terrible people who don't like people of color can commit it. While this conceptualization is misinformed, it functions beautifully to protect racism by making it impossible to engage in the necessary dialogue and self-reflection that can lead to change. Outrage is often followed by righteous indignation about the manner in which the feedback was given. I have discovered, as I'm sure have countless people of color, that there is apparently an unspoken set of rules for how to give white people feedback on racism. After years of working with my fellow whites, I have found that the only way to give feedback correctly is to not give it at all. Here ends our reading.
Euro-American educator and DEI consultant Jamie Utt offers this metaphor. Imagine for a moment you're standing with your friends in a park, enjoying a nice summer day. I walk right up to you holding a Frisbee, and I wind up and I throw it right into your face. Understandably, you are indignant. Through a bloody nose, you use a few choice words to ask me what the hell I was doing. And my response? Oh, I didn't mean to hit you. That was never my intent. I was simply trying to throw the Frisbee to my friend over there. Visibly upset, you demand an apology, but I refuse. Or worse, I offer an apology that sounds like, I'm sorry your face got in the way of my Frisbee. I never intended to hit you. Sound absurd? Sound infuriating enough to give me a well-deserved Frisbee upside the head? Yeah. So why is this same thing happening all the time when it comes to the intersection of our identities and oppressions or privileges? I actually see this discrepancy of intent and impact a lot in my home, specifically in my backyard, sometimes with a Frisbee, with our two dogs. They're both middle-aged now, and thus don't zoom around playing as often as they used to. But when they do zoom around the backyard, playing with each other, our younger, bigger dog, Bishop, does not always follow the rules that our smaller, crankier, older dog, Mango, has established, at least in her own mind. You see, Bishop is not allowed to chase Mango Well, that is a common way that dogs play. And while Bishop intends for that interaction to be a game, the impact on Mango is aggravation. And Bishop never apologizes and rarely stops on his own. He usually has to be distracted by his parents with a stick to fetch, to break off the chase. Dogs are acknowledged as a quite trainable species. And I still have higher hopes and expectations for us humans and our ability to recognize the impact of our behaviors and change. Yet the National Football League has put the words "end racism" in every football stadium in our country, yet one of the teams playing in the Super Bowl tonight is the Chiefs, despite years of criticism and activism by Indigenous Americans. As we heard in our reading from Dr. D'Angelo, the most common response from white participants in workshops on anti-racism and white privilege, which they knew was the topic, the most common response by far is outrage. How dare you suggest I could have said something or done something racist? Dr. D'Angelo has ascertained rules of engagement when raising a concern about racial bias and racism with white people, which begins first and foremost with, "Do not give me feedback on my racism under any circumstance," even if I am attending a workshop about dismantling racism. And if you break that cardinal rule, feedback must be given calmly, without emotion, or the feedback is invalid. Your feedback is also invalid if it's not given immediately, but the feedback must be given privately, because to give feedback in front of anyone else is a serious social transgression. It's also insensitive to give such feedback directly. I will feel unsafe, by which I mean uncomfortable, with direct feedback, and then you will have to repair our broken relationship. I get to ignore your feedback if we have any other personal issues between us, or if I experience any oppressions that you don't. You must trust that I am in no way racist, though you are giving me feedback about racism, and allow me to explain your misunderstanding. And you must focus on my intentions, which cancel out the impacts of my behavior. I'm sorry your face got in the way of my frisbee. It's possible we may recognize ourselves in some of these defensive reactions. Which brings us back to D'Angelo's conclusion that after years of working with my fellow whites, I have found that the only way to give feedback correctly is to not give it at all. D'Angelo calls such reactivity and defensiveness in the wake of a racist word or action white fragility, which she has defined as lower stamina for racial stress, in which even a minimal challenge to the white position becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive moves, including argumentation, invalidation, silence, withdrawal, and claims of being attacked or misunderstood. These moves function to reinstate white racial equilibrium and maintain control. White fragility is inextricably connected with our dominant American culture, which is and always has been infused with white supremacy. Euro-American educator and artist Dr. Tema Okun developed the definition of white supremacy culture, which includes many overlapping aspects that hinder fruitful dialogue across privileged and marginalized identities. The right to comfort, fear of open conflict, perfectionism, either-or thinking, and defensiveness. In another complementary concept to white fragility, our recent Lane Lyceum guest, Black Baptist minister, activist, and my former seminary classmate, Reverend Dr. Willie Francois. He shared with us his concept of white noise, the excuses pervasive in American culture to not address systemic or personal racism. Ideas and phrases like, "I can't be racist, I don't see color." "The past wasn't my fault. Slavery was so long ago, they should really get over it." "Not everything is about race. I've had it hard too, but I worked hard and succeeded. It's not my job to fix racism, and I'm scared of the backlash I might face." Scholars, preachers, and activists are noticing and have noticed these interpersonal patterns that uphold systemic racism and other forms of systemic oppression It is Black History Month, so I'm choosing to focus this sermon on our dominant culture's anti-blackness and the associated white privilege and fragility. But the concept is applicable to any privilege or marginalization. We could as easily talk about heterosexual fragility, cisgender male fragility, citizen fragility, able-bodied and neurotypical fragility, rich fragility, English-speaking fragility, even human fragility, in the context of the interconnected web of all existence. Privileged resistance to criticism, criticism that requires us to think and act in ways that are deeply countercultural, slows the very dream that people with liberal and progressive ethics want to see come to pass. A world where people truly aren't judged by the color of their skin, nor by their gender identity, nor nationality, nor sexuality, nor economic reality. My child brought home a cold. It's not COVID though, I've tested almost every day this week so far. I know that there's been public conversation decrying the term and concept of white fragility. And those who defame it sound suspiciously like the term itself. How dare you suggest I'm fragile? Unitarian Universalists are susceptible to privileged fragility because our covenant and our principles call us to be better than prejudice, better than discrimination. We want to, as the old phrase goes, walk the talk of respecting the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We also strive to be lifelong learners, encouraging each other toward spiritual growth. As Black queer UU seminarian and death doula Jacqueline Olayoya wrote, this is ridiculous, daycare cults. Our greatest aspiration should be that everyone can bring the best of their beliefs and their culture to our UU spaces and get to live them fully, while also incorporating the principles that we all hold together. We sometimes forget that to be a congregation of lifelong learners striving to create a welcoming community for all those who share our ethical values and spiritual pluralism, there will always be something more for us to learn, something about which presently we are individually or collectively ignorant. To be a lifelong learner is to be, on occasion, wrong. That can feel very uncomfortable for the progressive, privileged person. We want to already be the welcoming and woke individuals our values call us to be. I already told a story this church year about how I assumed a friend's partner was of the opposite gender and made a fool of myself in front of all of our mutual friends on Zoom. Oh, God bless. Laura Nevitt playing Vanna. Thank you. Didn't you say she was from South Carolina? Vanna White? Yeah, okay. Yeah, same. But imagine if after that Zoom call, I had lied to myself and to our friends that I hadn't referred to her partner as he, or if I blamed her for not keeping me up to date about her sexuality, instead of accepting that I had made an inaccurate assumption. And like everyone else, am still influenced by the dominant culture's heterosexism, the cultural air I breathe, try as I might to filter out that poison. As lifelong learners with various privileges living in an oppressive culture, it's okay and inevitable for us to mess up sometimes. It's reasonable to feel a pang of guilt or defensiveness when we miss the mark on our own declared values. In talking to a congregant this week, it dawned on me that this discomfort is closely related to our lizard brain. Do you remember that from a couple weeks ago? Here, it's back. Being told that we've said or done something prejudiced, wrong, threatens our self-concept, threatens our relationships, threatens how we understand the world. Our lizard brain, our lizard brain starts ringing its alarm bells, and privileged fragility can take over if we're not careful. During hard conversations about internalized prejudice, we can, over time, with practice, choose to re-engage our cortexes and learn, grow, become the person, the people we hope to become. Black UU minister, veteran, and author, Reverend Dr. Zolani Kasila, preached, "What we practice, we get good at." In fact, research now tells us very clearly what distinguishes amateurs from the pros, or the experts. It's the amount of time that people practice what they do. In order to become exceptional at what you do, you have to do two things. First, you have to practice with intention. That means you have to put in your time with the intention of becoming very good at whatever it is you're trying to do. If your intent is just to know how to do something at all, or do it good enough, that's all you'll get. Second, you have to practice a lot and consistently. Studies show that amateurs practice about 3 times a week for about an hour a sitting. Those who go on to be experts put in 3 hours a day, almost 7 days a week. Becoming an expert demands about 10,000 hours of practice. That's about 20 hours a week, every week, for about 10 years. He continues, "I say all of this because I believe it applies to how we become the people we say we are. It's not enough to just say we are post-racial. We have to practice being post-racial. There's a saying, if you're not on the court, you're not in the game. We have to put in the time on the court and off the court practicing. We have to put in 10,000 hours of practice to train our brains to be less fragile, more nuanced, to treat others with the respect their inherent worth and dignity demands, despite the messages we receive from the dominant culture, to be less prejudiced and more humble. We have to do this on the court, building relationships, making apologies, learning from our mistakes, advocating for systemic change, and we have to practice off the court, being vulnerable with accountability partners, reading and watching and listening to experts despite discomfort, carrying our intention of lifelong learning and our willingness to risk imperfection. And there's so much to be gained from putting aside the privileged false idols of comfort and perfectionism. Our own souls become freer, our relationships more equitable and authentic, our congregation more beloved, as more and more people of a variety of identities and backgrounds feel brave enough to join an increasingly diverse community. As we'll sing in our closing hymn, we ought not take for granted a privileged place. We each have privileges we can put to good use for the benefit of all peoples if we can maintain our commitment and our humility about the impact of our intended good. Bisexual Euro-American Christian UU composer and hymn writer Dr. Amanda Udis Kessler relates white fragility to the 5 phases of grief conceived by 20th century Swiss-American psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. These phases are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Udis Kessler preached, "We can rage or cry, but there it is, white supremacy. How we feel about it is beyond the point. We trust good evidence, and the evidence is compelling, both historically and in the present. White supremacy is real. So what are we going to do? We can't unlearn what we've learned. We can't skip over articles about racial inequity posted on Facebook. We can't unread the books and the blogs. We have agreed now to be uncomfortable for the rest of our lives, and we are as fine with it as we can be." Finally, we begin to reach what seems to be the closest thing to a final stage to acceptance, and that's commitment. The willingness to stay on it, to keep learning, to keep listening, to keep contributing where that seems possible and appropriate. It can be hard to stay in the zone, but once we have a taste of commitment, we know for sure how important this work is, and we keep returning to it. I offer us this blessing for the journey from Euro-American UU chaplain, Reverend Carrie Kopnick. The things to do have been done well, for the most part. The people we need are in place, almost. We are ready, or as ready as we will be. So bless this perfectly imperfect beginning. May we find the right people to do the right things as we go. May we discover that what we needed was right here, all along. And may we remember to stop and marvel at the magic of each moment as it floats by. May this be so. Blessed be, and amen.
That was amazing. Thank you. So as we approach the end of the service, we do have a few announcements. As always, please join us for a time of fellowship after the service. If you're here with us, we will be gathering in Parish Hall. If you're joining us online, please do go to the Zoom room and join in the online fellowship. Budget drive update. So far, we have gathered $111,616 in pledges. Yay! Thank you all. We are nearly a third of the way to our goal, which is really awesome. But if you have not yet pledged, I'm going to encourage you to go to the bell notes where you can find information about our pledge drive and how to pledge there. The Grief and Loss Support Group is meeting today at 12:30, and the Zoom link is also in the bell notes. And a final reminder of our regular weekly events, which on Thursdays we have the Writing Escapes, Vespers, and the Meditation Ministries, and on Friday we have the Creative Escapes. Again, see your bell notes for details. And as we extinguish our chalice this morning, please join me in saying the words together written by Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Elizabeth Sully Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing hymn is Wake Now My Senses, and it was written by retired UU minister Reverend Thomas Mickelson for the installation and ordination of Reverend Charity Rowley as Minister of Religious Education at First Parish in Arlington. We'll be singing only verses 1, 3, and 4. Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing verses 1, 3, and 4 of Wake Now My Senses. Lyrics are, as always, in your order of service or can be found at number 298 in your gray hymnals.
It's time for the benediction, but I'm going to start with an apology for coming in here sick. I guess you don't know how bad your runny nose is until you try to preach for 15 minutes. Apparently it's bad. I'll go home soon. As we close our service today, please take these words adapted from 20th century Black minister, educator, and civil rights theologian, Reverend Howard Thurman, with you as a benediction. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of divine love, our hearts whisper. Keep fresh before us the moments of our high resolve that in fair weather or foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the fog and foe are nameless or familiar, we may not forget that to which our lives are committed. Our service begins when our service ends. Blessed be, and amen.